Okay, I've got to hover on the mouse. That's fine. Okay, so see, tech issue number 1, just trying to figure out how to move to the next slide. So thanks again for everybody for joining us today. So what we're covering is running a canteen. So we say it's easy to digest, and we're going to, pardon the pun, but serve you up with a couple of resources and tools that will help you to have better relationships with people within the whole school community, and give you some tools and some resources that will make that a little bit easier. We're also going to talk to you about how to get maybe $1,000 for your school canteen towards the end, so you make sure you stick around for that. It's a very easy process, and then hopefully, time permitting, we'll have some Q&A at the end. So for anybody that participated in the WACSSO conference last year, you may have actually seen this slide, and the reason that we bring it up again is because the main thing we want to explain and to make you aware of is the fact that every canteen is run differently, and specifically talking about the roles and the responsibilities. So in this particular scenario, you can see that it's the canteen supervisor that's responsible for menu planning, menu design, and menu pricing. So whilst there's a canteen committee and a treasurer there, and of course volunteers, most of those responsibilities have been allocated to the canteen supervisor. In the next scenario, and this may be the way it works at your school, you can see that the P&C does the pricing of the menu, and hopefully they use a specific formula to do that. And the canteen committee and the treasurer are responsible for menu planning and design. And then this is another scenario, and this may be more like what's going on in your school. So your volunteers, apparently this particular school has a volunteer that's really good with menu design. They're quite au fait with using things like Excel and Canva and Word. So they're doing the menu. And the canteen supervisor does the planning, and the P&C are still in control of the menu pricing. What's really important to note about all of these setups is that everybody needs to work together, no matter who does what in running of the canteen. So whether it's the P&C, the committee, the treasurer, the supervisor, or the volunteers, making sure that everybody is aware of what their role and their responsibility is the most important thing. And how can you do that? Just by using things like your canteen supervisor's job description, of which we have a template for on our website. Making sure that you've got a canteen committee terms of reference. Again, we have a template for this on our website. And all of these will help you to initiate communication as well. So if we want to focus on developing positive working relationships, how do we go about that? And there's 3 key things that we wanted to cover today. So knowing what your canteen, or what you're asking of your canteen employees, is really important. So in any business situation, so whether it be in a multinational business or a small not-for-profit organisation, or a business that maybe has 1 or 2 employees, communication is the key, and making sure that everybody understands what their roles and responsibilities are. So number 1 is to make sure that you've done traffic light training. So quite often we have P&C members come along to our traffic light training when we run face-to-face sessions, and we know a lot of them do it online. But what's really important is that you then have an understanding of what your canteen supervisor needs to do to ensure that they are compliant with the healthy food and drink policy. So making sure that you have an understanding of what training needs to be undertaken, how often you need to communicate with the school community, what is the difference between a red, amber and a green food. All those things are covered in that training, and that's a really good place to start. I will cover this at the end of the session, but we do have a face-to-face training session coming up for traffic light training in 2 weeks' time on Wednesday the 24th. I'm pretty sure it's the 24th of August, and it's being held here in the department. So I can chat with you about that later on as well. Food safe food handler training is another area of compliance with the healthy food and drink policy. So making sure that the canteen supervisor has done it. But for the P&C to do it, it means that you have a better understanding of what the requirements are. And that's not just about food safety and hygiene requirements. It's also about the record keeping that needs to be undertaken. So food safe food handler training doesn't just cover things like making sure that you're sanitising appropriately and and cross-contamination and things of that nature, but it's also about what records you need to keep so that when you have inspections by your environmental health officer, everything is above board. And C is canteen check-in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that after, because we've got a new resource that we're also launching today that again will help you to understand more about compliance. There's a whole page dedicated to that. So number 2 is to communicate openly with the principal about plans for the canteen. So when we talk about communication within a school environment, obviously there are a lot of stakeholders. So not just your principal, but the deputies, the teachers and other non-teaching staff within the school community, and making sure that the communication is open, and that if you do have an issue, you can see dot point 3 is offer solutions, not just problems. And I think this is important again in any business. Is let's just hypothetically say that you wanted to go and talk to your principal about a fundraising initiative, but you can see that perhaps there might be some pushback from some of the parents because of something that you wanted to do. Then rather than just walking into the principal's office and saying, this is the problem, offering some solutions. So we feel that we might have pushback from some of the parents, but what we're offering to do is to run a bit of a forum so we can explain the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. And whilst we understand that offering healthy choices at fundraising events isn't part of the policy, we are choosing to offer fruits and vegetables and making sure that there's lots of healthy options available, as well as those treat sort of fundraising things. So it really is about making sure that you go in there with a couple of solutions that the principal then knows that you've done your homework. And a good example of that is a conversation I had with a primary school a couple of weeks ago. She called to ask me about a fundraiser they were having, and it wasn't so much the fundraiser wasn't the food. They were having a manure drive. So they were having lots of poo delivered to the school, and then they had a lot of people coming along to help distribute it. And she wanted to provide morning tea. What her concern was more COVID based. So concerned about a lot of people being in the same area at the same time and how they could facilitate providing morning tea without people touching everything. So her principal said, if you can make some phone calls to both WASCA and WACSSO and find out what their opinion is, then the principal was really happy that they had then done their due diligence. And of course, we just provided them with advice about doing the COVID training, which is the Australian Hospitality Association for WA's COVID training, which you can all access as well, and making sure they used pre-wrapped portions rather than using things like tongs. So just an example of how that communication worked really well. So we're going to be covering a couple of different templates today. So developing positive working relationships sometimes is easier if you've got a pro forma to work with. So in particular, when your canteen supervisor is reporting back to the P&C. So I don't know if anybody already has a template, and perhaps you can write into the chat function if you already do, but canteen subcommittees and the P&C work in a few different ways. So sometimes the canteen supervisor will be expected to come to a P&C meeting and provide a face-to-face update, which most canteen supervisors are happy to do. You may have a situation where you just ask the canteen supervisor just to jot down a few key points of what's been happening in the canteen for the prior term. We've developed a template to help you facilitate this a little bit easier. And what the template can do is, I think, to reduce the anxiety with a canteen supervisor so that they know what they should report on rather than just starting with a blank piece of paper. And you can put as little or as much into this template as you like. So we've filled out what we think are the important points, but of course, you can delete this template. It's editable, and add in the sections that you feel need to be expanded on, and delete those that you think are less important. But I think importantly, it also provides an opportunity to celebrate successes. So not everybody wants to just talk about, the issues that they're having in the canteen, whether it be about equipment that's broken or anything of that nature. But to be able to get the canteen supervisor to tell you, last week was amazing because we sold twice as many of this particular product than we've ever sold before, and this was the reason why. I think it makes sure that everybody's then on the same page. So all of these templates that we're talking about today, I have uploaded to the website this morning, so you don't need to worry about writing any of these down. When we send you an email next week on Monday or Tuesday, I'll have links to all the different resources in there for you. So just keep that in mind. So this is the newest resource that we've developed, and the reason this resource came about was because we were speaking to a P&C member who also happens to be a member of our executive committee, who basically said, I'm just not sure what I should be encouraging my canteen supervisor to do and how often they should be doing it. And initially I thought I wasn't quite sure what she meant, and then it really did become clear that we talk about traffic light training and we talk about communication and food safety and hygiene training, but we really hadn't specified how often should those things be done. So we developed basically it's a check-in document. So this will make it easier for you to be able to check in with staff, and it becomes more commonplace. So it's not something that just is a little bit ad hoc. It can help to alleviate smaller issues becoming bigger issues. And of course, it will encourage best practice procedures. And we know that when you follow best practice procedures in any business, then the business is automatically going to be running a lot better. On the flip side of the check-in is a compliance checklist. And again, it can ensure that both the employer, meaning yourselves as P&C, and the employee have a sense of satisfaction. And it can also then lead to help you to develop a plan to make changes. And you wouldn't believe it, but we also have a template for that too. So what we wanted to do to make this template a sort of a multi-purpose thing and help you to be able to use it was to work through like a scenario. So our scenario is really about the canteen communication, and to ask that question of whether the canteen is communicating effectively with parents and students. So one area of compliance with the healthy food and drink policy is the communication should happen at least twice a term with the school community in the form of a newsletter or Facebook post. But to start with, who would you consultate with to see whether you are doing this effectively? And I guess the question is it depends on the question that's being asked. In this situation with the canteen communication, we would be focusing on probably all of the people that are in the Venn diagram or the diagram there. So talking to the canteen committee about what they think communication should look like, talking to some volunteers, perhaps they notice things in the canteen that people that work there every day just don't notice, and sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see things. So in this scenario, if we move to, oh, sorry, I forgot there was the pop-up there. So one of the recommendations, and if I just go back, you can see underneath step 1 in the red text there, it tells you where these templates are located. The template for this particular part of the canteen check-in is basically called a checkup, and it has a list of questions that you can then use to form the next step. So this is what the canteen checkup looks like, and it really poses different questions for different scenarios. So for example, in staffing, it says, how many paid staff do you have and what are their hours? Under menu, consider recess items, is everything popular? So it splits it up into different categories, so the questions can be tailored for the situation that you've got at your school. So in step 2, we talk about what would be reviewed. So in our scenario about effective communication strategies, so asking the question about what sort of communication strategies are we going to be talking about? So does the P&C or the canteen have a Facebook page? And if they do, who's responsible for the content? So I know that just deciding to have a Facebook page and then saying, well, we'll just populate that and we'll do a post every day sounds really simple, but it's actually not. So making sure that somebody is going to be responsible for doing those Facebook posts is really important. Maybe somebody needs to check the post before it gets posted. So there needs to be 2 people that perhaps can have access to the Facebook page so that they can check to make sure there's no typos or that the post that you're doing is relevant for the rest of the school community. And if the canteen supervisor is going to contribute content, is this in their job description? If it's just the P&C doing it, do you then liaise with the canteen supervisor about what sort of posts should be included? Perhaps the communication strategy isn't about social media at all. Maybe it is about contributions to the school newsletter, and hopefully you're all doing that anyway. But again, who would develop the content for the school newsletter? And if you go to the WASCA website, you'll see that we have some snippets of things that can be put in the newsletter that are just a general focus. So things like, calcium content in dairy foods, and little snippets about different fruits and vegetables. So you can use those to put in your newsletter. Otherwise, using the newsletter to communicate with parents about specials that are coming up. Perhaps you just need volunteers. There's a multitude of different things that you can use there. So the resource for this is the staff review template. So you can go to our website and see that there is the Canteen Supervisor job description, and then there is also another document that will help you to review what is your canteen supervisor happy with their current job description. And this particular document provides an opportunity for both parties to review what the current work situation is. It's not just supposed to be a document where you sit the canteen supervisor down and say, these are all the things that you're doing and this is what we need you to do now. It should be a two-way process and gives everybody the opportunity to talk about what the strengths are, perhaps what the weaknesses are, and to make a plan moving forward. So step 3, if you're going to still use the scenario about the communication plan, is to discuss how this can be done. So working out what's the best time of the day. So going back to step 1, remembering the people that should be involved in this process. So if it's just the canteen subcommittee perhaps and the canteen supervisor, and in this situation, let's just say it's those 2 groups that will be involved. Will the canteen supervisor be expected to participate in this discussion outside of work hours? And is it written in their job description that they're expected to do that? If it's within work hours, it should still be written in their job description that the expectation is that they contribute to a communication plan. So as long as the roles and the responsibilities are open and everybody is aware of them, then you will alleviate problems moving forward. And the link for this particular step is to go and have a look at the Focus Canteen online training. So for those of you that wanted to perhaps upskill in different ways of running the canteen, and the Focus online training is a comprehensive training course. So it covers everything from how to do markups of your menu, how to price your menu effectively, how to actually start a canteen, what the roles and the responsibilities are, how to develop a menu. It does cover food safety and hygiene, but it is not a comprehensive course. It just talks about the basics that you need to know. It's a comprehensive training. It's currently on a 30% discount, and this was done because of COVID to make sure that online training was accessible for everybody. So I encourage you to go and have a look at that and encourage your canteen supervisor to do it as well. So step 4 is about making a plan. So as I mentioned before, we do have a template for almost everything. So once you've decided that you wanted to work out a communication strategy, how can you make sure that just by talking about it, it progresses into an action? So we have an action plan that you can use to keep track of your progress, but also it's a way of letting the rest of the school community know about the progress. So for example, in our scenario, you have the canteen subcommittee and you have the canteen supervisor making a plan about how you're going to communicate with the rest of the school community. Once you've done the plan, you can then take this back to the P&C and present the plan to them so that they are aware of what you are doing. So the next time there's a P&C meeting, you can sit down and say, we had a meeting about our communication strategy and this is the plan that we've come up with. The most important thing down the bottom there is, of course, is to thank everybody that's involved. So when you've worked through step 1 to 4, making sure that everybody feels valued and everybody feels that their contribution is being heard. So this is a copy of the action plan. We've put an example underneath the first box there. You'll see just underneath the blue row, that header. So An action plan helps you to clarify exactly what you're doing. So what actions or changes will occur, and really importantly, who's going to carry it out. So it's all very well to make an action plan and then you all walk away from your meeting and one person says, oh, but I thought you were doing that. And the other person says, but I thought he was doing that. So having it written on a piece of paper that everybody gets a copy of means that you can progress with the action and make sure that you are successful. So making sure someone's responsible. The timeline is really important. So not making it so difficult that everybody feels that they're leaving a meeting where you've developed an action plan thinking, I'm never going to be able to get this done in the time frame that's being allocated. So being really reasonable and open, and of course open to extension as well. So if it looks like things are kind of going a little pear-shaped, then go back and reevaluate and just say maybe we need another term to make all the changes that we want to make. The resources, so what resources will you need? And again, WASCA has a multitude of resources that are on our website. A lot of the templates that we have are like this one, which means you simply download it as a Word document and then you edit it to suit your own situation. Because, I mean, obviously, as we know, not every school runs exactly the same way. And you might find that you wanted to insert extra columns or extra rows into the template or the action plan to make it just your own. And then to review the progress at the end. So to make sure that you've gone back and you've looked at, you know, what worked really well and perhaps what needs reevaluating. So on the flip side of the check-in is the healthy food and drink policy checklist. So this checklist really is about compliance. So perhaps you can write into the chat function if you've seen this checklist before. I'm hoping everybody's going to say yes. We've definitely seen this before, because if you've ever had a menu assessment done by WASCA, then you should have received this back with the assessment. What this basically does is that it helps you to understand the 5 areas of compliance. But what we did with this new version is we added in an extra line that tells you how often you should be doing things. So if we have a quick look through, number 1, develop a school-based healthy food and drink policy. So I'm hoping that you've all got a policy. You should review your policy every year to ensure that it meets the expectations of the school community. So how could you do that? Doing a survey with the school community is a really good idea. The healthy food and drink policy that you have should include things like, we will communicate with the school community at least twice a term. It should state things like, we are a crunch and sip school, this is how we facilitate this. It should have information about how often you're going to review the menu, the pricing structure and things of that nature. So if you are looking at that and you don't have a policy, never fear, because WASCA has a template for that as well, and it's located on our website. So it's pretty easy to find, and again, you can just edit it so that it suits your school's needs. The number 2 is promoting healthy eating to the school community, and that was the scenario that we've just worked through. So you should be doing this at least twice per term, and it really can be as small or as big as you want it to be. So, you know, stories, recipes, WASCA has a whole bank of recipes on our website that you can use. You can download any of the recipes and perhaps promote them for parents to use at home, particularly if it's something that the canteen is also using. So saying to parents that this is a recipe that's been really popular in the canteen for the past month, we encourage you to try it at home. So doing that at least twice a term. In our latest buyer's guide, we had a calendar that had a list of different promotional events listed in it through until the end of the year. So it had things like, I'm just trying to think of something that was in it. I think there was International Burger Day, Cheesy Day, Pizza Day, Harmony Week. I know things like Book Week have been moved to be later in the term now due to the COVID restrictions that were in place last term. So check out the Star Choice Buyer's Guide and you'll see a calendar of events there that you can use as your promotional ideas. So number 3 is to complete traffic light training. Someone, obviously, we suggest that traffic light training is done every 5 years. However, if you've got somebody that you feel would just like to do a refresher, there's an easy way that you can do that, and that's just by doing it online via our website. So traffic light training is only $15 if your school is a member of WASCA, or $20 if you're a non-member, and it's the same price if it's face-to-face or online. To do it face-to-face means that you have the added advantage of being able to network with other canteen staff, and it's really invaluable, that networking opportunity. So if you do see a face-to-face session advertised, then I strongly encourage you to attend, or to get your canteen staff to attend. And I'm just going to check that date, the traffic light training. 100%. Someone apparently just asked a question about the whole exec doing it. Yes. So we have a traffic light training scheduled for Wednesday, the 24th of August. It's being held in our office here. Now, clearly that's not going to suit everybody, but the school that just asked about the exec, if you have 5 people from your school that would like to complete traffic light training, providing COVID restrictions have been lifted and your principal is happy for us to attend, we can come to your school and conduct that training just for your school. If you are open to us advertising it to other schools in the area, we can 100% do that as well. As I said, the more the merrier. So the more people that participate in training in the one training session, the better off it is, because you will all network off each other. You will compare what's on your menu. You will compare, hopefully not prices. We don't encourage comparison of pricing, but compare different ways of doing things. And that's the beauty of being able to do training in a face-to-face environment. We are also running traffic light training via Zoom. So if this platform has worked for you, then again, you can email us and we could organise a Zoom traffic light training session just for your school as well. So number 4 is to complete food safe food handler training, and WASCA was really pleased to form a collaboration with the Environmental Health Authority so that we now can provide access to food safe food handler training online for free for our schools, which is fantastic. If you feel that you would like to participate in food safe training online, the online version is the whole package. It might take you maybe an hour and a half to do. It is free. All you need to do is go to our website and you'll see the instructions there about sending an email to WASCA, and we then send you back a code. We send you back a code that you can use for you personally. If you have anybody else at the school that would like to do it as well, then if you ask them to email us, we can allocate the same code to the school, but we do need the names of everybody that's participating. Again, like traffic light training, we do run face-to-face food handler training, and it is tailored for schools specifically and canteens. So it does cover a lot more that is appropriate for schools. So if you would like to do the face-to-face training, again, we can organise to come to your school and do a session. If you'd like to do the whole package in a day, we can do that too. So we could come to the school, we could run traffic light training, we then would break for lunch, and then we could do food handler training after that. So it is a whole day. And again, we can invite schools in the area. We often do full day training in the department, in our offices here as well. So keep a lookout for those. I might actually just cover the financial management training now. We are running 2 sessions of financial management training in October during the holidays. On Monday, the 5th of October is, I believe, the primary school session, and on the Tuesday the 6th we're running a secondary school session. And the reason we split the training is because we know that primary schools and secondary schools have very different needs. So the content is pretty much the same. It's just that when there's specific questions about secondary schools and primary schools, it's much better for you to be able to network with like-minded people. That will also include a networking lunch as well. So if you'd like to RSVP for that, again, you can just go to our website or send us an email. You can respond to the email that I'm going to send you on Monday or Tuesday as well. That's perfectly fine. And number 5, and I guess this is the most important part of compliance, and this is the canteen menu. So making sure that you have a minimum of 60% green choices on the menu, and of course a maximum of 40% amber and no red. So the reason why you're encouraged to do traffic light training is so that you know the difference between a green and an amber food and a red food. So it sometimes can be a little difficult to know whether a food fits into the green or the amber category, and we do our best to explain that to you, but sometimes foods are a bit tricky, and that's where we come in. So you can send us recipes or products and we can assess those for you so that you know which ones are eligible to be on the menu, and then how often you can sell them. So, sorry, Megan's just waving to me from the other side of the computer.
I think it's a relevant question for multiple people.
Yep.
If you're a K to 10 school, should you do both primary school and high school?
If you're a K to 10 school, you actually can choose which training that you come to. I would probably suggest doing secondary school training, but what may happen is that if we don't get enough people for both the separate training sessions, we will combine it. So perhaps in this situation, which day suits you better would be perfectly fine. We have on occasion thought about running a training session just for those district high schools, because we quite often know that there are canteen staff that have to cater for children as young as 4 and then almost adults that are 17. So if we had enough interest, we'd be really happy to run a training session that was just focusing on district high schools. So please send us an email if this is you, and we'll see what we can arrange for you. So how often should you be reviewing your canteen menu? Ideally, you should have both a summer and a winter menu. And the reason for this is obviously there are different food items that we sell, and quite often we find that the winter menu runs in term 2 and term 3, and then your summer menu runs in term 4 and term 1. So send your menu through to us and we can assess it for you. When we send it back with a comprehensive 2 or 3 page assessment. In the assessment, we tell you what your percentage is, and we also provide you with some recommendations about how you can increase your green percentage on your menu. We also attach a number of other resources. Every time we do a menu assessment, we also send it back to the principal. We do advise you of this when you send the menu through to us. And the reason we do is because you should be promoting to your principal about how great you are doing and how you are looking to ensure that you're providing the healthiest choices that you can to the school community. So making sure that your principal is aware of what the P&C is doing to support a healthy food environment is really important. So I'm just mindful of time. So I just wanted to cover the Robin Bromley Visionary Grant. So I don't know if we've got any schools that are online that have maybe applied in the past and weren't successful, or maybe we even have one of our lucky recipients online. So if you are either of those, I encourage you to enter something into the chat function. Basically, the program aims to empower canteen supervisors to undertake professional development and training, or enhance the canteen by purchasing essential equipment. So we award $1,000 to 3 schools each year. The grants are open at the moment and they close on Friday the 18th of September. We have extended the application closing date by a week, and the reason for that is because the week prior is our AGM, and it's great to be able to chat with potential applicants at our AGM about what they think they're going to apply for, and we felt that people probably just needed an extra week. The biggest tip that I can give you is to give me a call. So pick up the phone, call WASCA, ask for Amanda, and talk to me about what you think you want to apply for. Because in the last 6 years, I've seen every application you can possibly imagine, and I know which ones are successful and which ones aren't. Just a disclaimer, I'm not the person that marks the applications, so we actually send them out and they are adjudicated externally. So there's no bias when it comes to who should be one of the lucky recipients. So I just want to show you a couple of images of what people have applied for in the past. And actually, I think we've had 3 schools that have purchased similar fridges. So you can see that is a benchtop fridge. The whole idea about that fridge is that they can display healthy food and drinks, and it means that we had a regional school that applied for one of these who are in a really hot climate, and it meant that they could leave foods out for longer periods, obviously because they're refrigerated on the bench and students could see them and it was easier to access. This picture here is from York District High School. They applied for a grant. This was just one of the things that they used their grant for. They wanted to increase their patronage to the canteen. So they had a very tired looking outdoor sort of outside area, so the frontage. So they had the blackboard painted and the name of the canteen painted on the outside, and it meant that they could then write their healthy specials on the blackboard and just encourage more kids to come past the canteen because it was looking a little bit tired. They also purchased a stainless steel bench. You can see that little stainless steel bench there. And the reason for that was because they wanted to start preparing more fresh food on site, but they didn't have enough bench space to do it. So you can see that the applications and the recipients, the goods are far and wide. This was a package that one other school applied for. So they wanted to be able to make some bread, or at least to make the dough, and then to be able to use that dough to make things like Vegemite scrolls or their own pizza bases. Blenders, obviously, and the mixers and the vitamizers, so they were able to chop up their fruits and their vegetables a lot quicker. Stainless steel benches are normally quite a common ask, and this particular school, I actually think this might have been Broome Senior High School, these images, they needed to have their benches recovered because the Formica was so old that they couldn't actually use them because of food safety and hygiene to prepare fresh food. Obviously, another school applied for a blender. Clearly, I mean, you can see the price on that blender is $129. So obviously, they had a lot of funds to still play with after that. And a Thermomix. So know that they didn't just apply for a bowl of cauliflower. A school last year applied for a Thermomix because they wanted to be able to prepare more food from scratch, but they were quite time poor because, like most schools, they don't have a lot of volunteers. The biggest hint I can give you about applying for something like a Thermomix is make sure that you submit recipes with it so that we know what it is that you're going to be using the Thermomix for. Now, clearly a Thermomix is not $1,000. We know they're about a $2,000 purchase. What you would need to ensure is that you've sent us a signed letter from the P&C to say that they are happy to contribute the additional funds. And this is really important. It could make or break your application. So just to finish up, and I know we have got a couple of minutes left, but if you're happy to stay online, Megan and I are both happy just to stay around for an extra 10 minutes just to answer some additional questions. So on Thursday, the 10th of September is our AGM. You get to come and have a look at the amazing Bob Hawke College and the cafeteria that's there. They are lucky enough to have appointed a chef, as I can hear you all laughing, as the canteen convener. So he does run it as a contractor, and he's doing a truly amazing job. It coincides with Are You OK Day, so we'll be having a little bit of a Q&A about supporting each other and, again, communication between stakeholders within the school as well. It runs from 5 till 7. There'll be a light supper, and we strongly encourage you to come along. So just by participating today, we would like to offer the chance for you to win free WASCA membership. So WASCA membership is $90. What does membership get you? A whole multitude of bonuses. So just by participating today, I will send you out an email on Monday, and what I'll do is I'll include the links to the resources that we've covered today, and importantly, a link to a survey. So whenever we do a workshop, and I know that this has been very different from the ones that you've participated in before at Crown, but we learn from you about what other resources that we can develop for you and how can we make them better. So I strongly encourage you to complete the survey. When you get to the end of the survey, you can pop your name in there, and then we will draw somebody out to win. And I think your odds are pretty good. I think we've got 42 people online, so I think that's pretty good odds. The other thing that I'd like to include in the survey is really just about keeping this communication open. And I know that this is very different from the WACSSO conference, and the best part about that conference is your ability to talk to each other. So what we'd like to do is to keep this conversation going. When I send you the email on Monday, I'd like to be able to put in a couple of time slots for a simple 1-hour network meeting. We ran some really successful network meetings during COVID, and we used Zoom. We only had a maximum of 8 participants, and what that meant is that you could all see each other. and you all got the chance to talk. So we would really love if you can choose a time slot that suits you. So it could be 2 till 4, it could be 4 till 5, it could be 5 till 6. So we're happy to arrange a network meeting that suits you. So choose all of the time slots that apply to you, and then within the next couple of weeks, we'll try to organise a network meeting. If we need to organise 3, 2 or 4 to make sure we can fit everybody in, then we definitely will. Fantastic. And the best part about that is that there's no PowerPoint, which means that I can actually see you, because it's really not nice to me just to stand here and just talk to a PowerPoint presentation. So I think that would be a fantastic thing to arrange in the next couple of weeks. If you feel that you'd like to wait and do it during the school holidays in October, we can certainly do that too. So I think we have kind of finished our time, but we are happy to answer if there's some burning questions, and I'm just looking at Megan